Hi, it's Mark Owen from Moose Marketing NPR, the editor of Punchline magazine, and welcome to Punchline Talks. Today I'm joined by Miles Dunkley, the founder and owner of SLG Brands. He's an investor in groovy, ambitious businesses. Hi, Miles. Really great for you to join us today. Thanks for joining Punchline Talks.
Hi, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
Now, you're one of the well-known companies here in the county, in Gloucestershire. Could you tell us more about the business, please? How many people you employ? The size, what's the turnover of the company? Where are we now, please?
Yeah, so SLG is my company. We're about 120 people, headquartered in Cheltenham, with a manufacturing subdivision in Cheltenham as well now. We're essentially a community of, I say, creative beauty pioneers. Designers, product developers, salespeople, marketing people, finance people, logistic people, all under one roof, developing, creating, scaling, growing beauty brands. That's essentially what we are today. We're around a 30 million turnover company, so small to medium sized business. And yes, we're a local business. We're here in Cheltenham, in the Brewery Quarter, but really we're a global business. Our business is about international scale and distribution, and that is essentially what SLG is.
Now, I always see you as, if you don't mind me saying, Dale Vince. Dale Vince is an absolutely fantastic marketeer. Let's be honest about it. Everything he does, like Union Jack the Green, I've spoken to Dale a number of times. Absolutely fantastic. And I put you in the same bracket. What you've done there with SLG Brands, how did you get to the company? Because originally it was your parents, didn't they? Did they start the company?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The company started 36 years ago, 1985, in Gloucester, 3 Cheltenham Road, to be precise. In fact, in the garage and the front, the lounge, which became an office, to be even more precise. My mother and father started the company. The first product for the company was a makeup sponge, a latex makeup sponge, actually. And this, from this small beginning, the whole of SLG kind of grew. The first 10 years of the company's existence, I was forging my own career in the design industry, in brand and design consultancy, initially in Gloucester and then in London for quite a large international brand design agency. That becomes relevant when I then joined the company, which was in 1996, so sort of 25 years ago, when really a design guy and myself joined a beauty company, contract manufacturing company, and the next sort of 25 years have really been a kind of development of a design agenda into the beauty business, to the point we are now regarded within the beauty industry anyway as one of the leading, probably, design-led, fashion-orientated beauty companies. But when I joined the company in 1996, it was a great company. It was about 700,000 turnover, about 30 or so staff, 3 people in the office. I was the 4th person to join the office. It was my dad's partner, actually, Pat Topping, brilliant businesswoman, and our secretary called Dawn. That was the office. And then we had a shop floor by this point on Innsworth Technology Park in Gloucester. And when I came straight from the London design industry to Innsworth Technology Park, so there was quite a culture shock there. And I think what happened, and I don't regard this as a strategy, it's just what happened. I felt inclined toward harnessing the knowledge that I'd acquired, which was how powerful design can be within business, what a powerful business instrument that can be if it's deployed properly. And really to apply that to what we had, which was basically a very raw contract manufacturing business that was doing well, don't get me wrong. My dad and Pat had developed it into a really great small company. And then over the coming years, I started to explore how design could play a role in what we were doing. And that that included, in my first week, actually, I joined the company. I said to Pat, actually, I said, listen, I think we need to spend some money on design. I think we need to get a great designer to work on a freelance project to look at product design. And I think it's going to cost about £500. I remember the figure, it was 500. I know the guy is somebody who works in London I used to work with. And Pat said, well, listen, that's the budget we have actually for our first computer, which kind of dates that moment in time. We didn't have a computer. We had a word processor at that point. And she said, so really, Miles, you can choose. It's a computer or it's a design project. And of course, the decision was it's a design project. And that really was the beginning of design playing a massive role in the company that we now have. Then I was very ambitious. Obviously, I was a young chap, 29 or something, hugely ambitious. My father was retiring and all but retired really. And so I had this kind of real desire to grow, first of all, but also to grow into something that was more, I guess, reflective of myself, more so than perhaps what my father had created. So I was very interested in creativity and design. So that was something that was going on, but also scale. So after 2 or 3 years, we bought our competitor company, a company called Lamborns. We were called Cinematex at that time. That's where Cinematex Lamborns Group come from, SLG, Cinematex Lamborns Group. That gave us bigger scale. We then started importing products as well as making products, so we could augment the product line into all sorts of beauty accessory type products, makeup brushes, manicure implements, false lashes, you name it. But we would design those products as well as just make them or have our subcontractors make them. We had a creative input all the way through. And the more we designed stuff, the more we applied that, the more successful the business became and the bigger the business came. So that just...
Sorry, Miles, how did you find, get into the sort of women's side of things, if you don't mind, all the eye makeup and the tiaras, being a chap, I hope sound naive.
Yeah, well, my parents had initiated a beauty company. I joined what they already had created. So my job was just to carry on that, and that already was beauty. So I had to, of course, become knowledgeable in all things beauty, which I have a disproportionate knowledge now for a fella. But the reason why it started off in beauty is down to my mum. My mum spotted a product at a trade fair that she suggested to my dad that he should pursue as a kind of product idea. And you know what, it might not have been that. My mum might have spotted some kind of food product, and that would have been my parents were really kind of serial entrepreneurs. They weren't interested in product sectors, they were just interested in ideas, and it just happened to be that was the one. So that's really where that kind of came from. And then down the line, we've created, I think, a remarkable portfolio of brands that we now own. But in there, our Johnny's Chop Shop is a male grooming brand. So there is a male element to things. We have the global licensing rights for Superdry in beauty and in male grooming. And the male grooming part of that Superdry license is really the really big piece and is our biggest global license. So there is a male element to it. But yeah, so I'm a marketing design guy, so it's inevitable, I suppose, that we would end up with a business that was kind of marketing design orientated, perhaps in the way that you described the chap from Forest Green and Ecotricity, I think is his company.
That's right.
Love to meet him.
Were you always into design in school as well? Was it just something that you naturally fell into?
Well, it's very interesting that you should ask that, because the answer is no. I mean, I quite liked art, but at that time, King's School, the school I went to, art was an extracurricular subject, and being a lazy chap, and also because it was extracurricular, I figured it wasn't therefore important to the sort of educational platform, I suppose, and so I didn't go with it. My art was basically drawing on my textbooks, which my school friends will remember I did. And sometimes also on the walls, to be absolutely honest, in the gentlemen's toilets. That was as far as art went for me. And it's interesting because yesterday I was at the King's School at the end of year art show, and myself and my wife have supported King's School in financially in terms of donation to support the art function at school. I think in a sort of full circle to the feeling that when I was at school, it wasn't regarded highly enough as a core subject, and without art, without design, I wouldn't have anything really, like in terms of business. So we're really sponsoring that side of things.
What do you think has been your biggest challenge? I mean, COVID itself has been absolutely huge. Was it breaking into America, or was it the first product design? And how did you, sorry, I'm going to ask a different question actually, is how did you find taking over from your dad after taking over your parents? Was that an easy transition?
So I'll come to that second question first, which was taking over from my parents. It was very easy because my parents, my mum wasn't so much in the business by the time I joined anyway. My father was incredibly supportive, has always been very supportive. He's a believer in me. So when I joined the company, and I can remember the first morning, like it was yesterday, January the 2nd, 1996, that I went into the office, and that morning he pretty much said, look, metaphorically, here's the keys to the company, it's yours to do as you feel is right. I'm going on to the golf course, I'll see you later. And it was literally like that, total faith and belief in me, which of course gave me tremendous confidence, I suppose, space to do my thing. But also I wanted to reward that faith with some end product, and all those things probably converge. So I'm very blessed that I had that. Whereas I think a lot of people's stories of succeeding from their parents or the father is of struggle, and mine wasn't that. I mean, I think there was probably moments, and my dad and I still sometimes talk about them, where there was pinch points, of little niggle. I'm very a young chap from the design industry, as more traditional business guy on a trading estate, and so there was moments, perhaps a few, but nothing. It was really about support, and I was very fortunate. In terms of what have been the big moments for the company, the transformational ones, definitely, I think the introduction of a design narrative into the company when I joined was a massive catalyst for the company. That was the first thing. I think also when we started to create brands, not for retailers, because a lot of the work that we were doing in the sort of first 10, 15 years of my time at SLG was creating brands for other companies. Private label, it's called in our industry. So we'd create a brand for Boots or brands for Superdrug or Tesco's or Marks and Spencer's in particular. Nobody would know there was an SLG behind that. It would appear to be a Boots brand, or it would appear to be a Marks and Spencer's brand, but it wasn't. It would be an SLG that had created it and all the rest of it. It was really when we moved away from that into creating brands for ourselves, because I kind of realized that we were pretty good at that, but we were making our retailers look really good. And I kind of felt, and it's something you and I have talked about actually previously, that feeling of being the backing singer, but when you want to be the front man. Or the front. Exactly. You want a headline, you don't want to be a bit part. And that's certainly what we felt. We had the skills to do that. So we started to create our own brands that we owned, and we had the kind of intellectual property asset value in the brands, as well as the P&L trade that comes from it. You get the double down there. The quality of the income that comes from that brand is much higher when you own it. If you measure income in terms of the quality of the income anyway. That was a major change, and that was really started about 5 or 6 years ago. And then the final chapter, I think, thus far in the company, in terms of big moments, was and is the breaking of America. By far the biggest beauty economy in the world, and really that started to heat up a couple of years ago. 2 or 3 years ago, when we partnered with a great distribution partner. We had the right kind of brand portfolio as well that was relevant to America. We didn't create it for America, but it just happened to be relevant for America, as it turns out, in terms of the kind of product collections, the sort of narratives we were describing.
How did that first meeting go then? Was it a phone call from them, or did you chase the other company? How did that sort of work out to actually get your foot in the door in the first place? Because that's amazing.
The catalyst for that was actually my business partner on Johnny's Chop Shop, a guy called Stephen Ross, who I co-founded that brand with. He's amongst other things, he's a brilliant barbershop entrepreneur. So he runs the Johnny's Chop Shop barbershops in London and in New York that we have, and I run the beauty side of things. He had a network in America, and he had a friend who worked in a big American distribution company. It was just as an acquaintance more than a friend, perhaps. And he introduced us to that company, or to that person, and that was the catalyst for us hooking up with them, because international distribution is all about the distribution partner. Doesn't matter if you've got great brands. It doesn't matter if you've got the best brand in the world. If you haven't got the right footprint of distribution, it's kind of logistically speaking, and partner, you never get off the ground. And equally, if you have the best brand and you get with the wrong distribution partner, it can kill even the best brand. So we were very lucky to have that. But the real big moment for that relationship really occurred in February of last year. We were starting to build nicely with them, but we had a kind of moment in time where we had 2 or 3 really, really important new brands just landing, just being created. And we were in February, the pandemic was starting to spread, get closer and closer to our door. If you recall that time, it's coming from the Far East towards the UK, and then of course latterly into America. And my team, and it's nothing to do with me, this is to do with my brilliant team, and led in this case by Lucy Beresford, who's joint MD here. Felt, right, we've got to get across to America. We've got to present these new brands with our distributor to the big retail groups out there. And we better do it quick, because this pandemic could be shutting us all down. So they put together a pitch to Target, the giant American retailer, and other Walmart and others. But Target is the one that everybody wants to be in when you're in my business. And I can't remember exactly the number of people, about 8 people from SLG flew to America as a team to present the company and the brands to the big retail groups with the distributor. You couldn't do it without them, and they couldn't do it without us. It was a joint thing. 8 or so people flew out, and they absolutely smashed it. And literally, no sooner had they returned back from the UK, really done the job of securing massive distribution listings in America. The world then shut down, of course, including then America, which happened to be, I think it was in April, just after we did. But just before the door shut, we had gained those listings. And just to put that in perspective, we now, today, SLG Brands are in 25,000 shops in America.
Wow.
And the majority of that was secured around that trip. And that, as I say, just to be really clear, I didn't go on that trip. I didn't trigger that trip. It was nothing, I had no involvement in that other than having a part to play in the brands that were created. It was a supreme effort by a supreme team here at SLG. So that has been a major thing. Now, right now, the current store count globally is 65,000 stores across 7 brands that we own. So we have a huge distribution, which is obviously massively weighted into America, which is clearly our primary market.
So I'm assuming next then that it's the Far East. Is that going to be the idea? China, Japan? Sure.
Yes, China. We're already distributed in China, Japan, Indonesia, Thailand, Taiwan, South Korea, Vietnam. I mean, pretty much throughout the Southeast Asia region. But the big opportunity is really China. The barrier to China, though, has always been their requirement that products going into China are tested on animals. And that's absolutely not an option for SLG or its brands. So it's always been a problem to get into China. And the way we've distributed into China is really through Hong Kong and through online sales, where you don't need to have that as a prerequisite. But just recently, the government are easing that regulation. Basically, I believe they were doing that to stop brands coming in, imported brands. They want domestic brand growth. But their pressure, I think, consumer pressure within China has eased that. So we'll see China actually rise as a huge. But Colab dry shampoo, our dry shampoo brand, is the #1 dry shampoo brand in Indonesia, just as an example of that. So we're quite strongly indexed. And then Australia has become a big market for us. Johnny's Chop Shop has just gone into around about 600 or 700 stores across Australia. And so we see that as a real growth market for us as well.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. Congratulations again. I mean, how about the day-to-day running of the company? Now, most business owners I talk to, their biggest problem are the people. I hate to say it. Yes, they get great joy out of their staff.
Yeah.
But it really is, you know, the hardest thing is actually keeping their staff on board, keeping it motivated, keeping it all going. How do you manage the people, Miles? What's your secret?
Well, people probably are the biggest problem, but they're also the most important thing and the most wonderful thing as well, actually. I don't know what the strategy is really, other than we've always tried to, of course, like we all do, try and find the best people, the people that fit your culture, and that are going to bring, aren't going to dilute that and going to actually enrich it. So that's always been, we've always had an eye on that, and we absolutely do. One of the things that we always say in interviews is, we ask ourselves in interview, is this person a nice person? That is literally, rather than are they good at their job, you know, what type of person are we talking about? Are they nice? And that becomes the first thing that we consider. And then once on board, we really try and create an environment that we hope will stimulate commitment from the employee, from the colleague, passion, long-term vision to stay at the company, these sorts of things. So our office environment is quite particular, I think. We invested quite heavily in making that the most amazing workspace that, well, I could imagine, that we could all imagine working in, so that there's reward for coming into the office each day, that you create areas of breakout spaces to sort of just relax as well as work hard. And then and this is done really by people much cleverer than I in the company, make sure there's the constant touch points with staff and check-ins, and make sure everyone's happy, and if not, why not, and what can we do to help. So the HR function at SLG is a very, very important function. And as I say, it's an area where there's people who are much more gifted at knowing exactly what to do. I suppose if I've got one contribution to make, that is that I support that entirely, that's an important function and something we invest in at SLG. So yeah, I guess it's that kind of thing really. But yeah, people come and go. People leave SLG, and we've had quite a run of that recently. In fact, we've probably done a year's worth of recruitment, both in and out, in the last few months. I think it's a pandemic thing, everything, staff, people kind of froze. The kind of recruitment industry just sort of froze. Nothing was happening, and suddenly it all fired up again in the last few months. So we've seen quite a few departures, which we're very sad about, but we've seen some brilliant incoming as well. So there's been a bit of churn in that regard. It's just I think that's a moment in time thing, but yeah.
Is there something that you would change at all running the business? For this journey that you've been on the 25 years, has there been a mistake that you thought, God, I wish I'd known that, or I wish I'd done that differently? What would that be, Miles?
I think knowing what I now know, sort of 54-year-old Miles, if I knew what I knew now when I was like 30 or so, I'd have been onto that brand ownership thing right from the beginning. And we could have done all this 20 years ago. I think it's that, I don't regard it so much as a regret, but just what I would have done differently. Of course, it's a journey. You take steps, you don't leap always forward. It's all about steps. And actually, it's also about a load of mistakes, and the mistakes and the things, the blind alleys you go down and you reverse out and you go down something else. These are the things that enrich you, one as an individual. So I suppose you need to go through that to become perhaps the more rounded business leader or entrepreneur that you end up being. So I don't regret the fact that it's been, a 25-year journey rather than a 2.5-year journey. But I suppose if I was to do something differently, it would to go after that brand ownership strategy from the very beginning.
Where do you see SLG next? What's the next goal? Is there a 5 or 10-year plan? You say you're 54. You know, is there an idea? Is there a time in your head we think, you know, we touched on it before we started the interview about, dear Rob Freeman, and you know, he was the same age as us, and so you know, I think we're more aware of our own mortality, shall we say, especially with the pandemic. So, what's your plan next for SLG?
Yeah, that's very clear. We've got the portfolio of our own brands now, Collab, Johnny's Chop Shop, Ryman Reason, S19, Ami Skincare, Velvetan, and a brand called Beauty Laundry. We've got this portfolio of brands. What's so important now is that we make those brands huge household names. And that is the next frontier for us. We have the portfolio of brands that we always wanted. We have the footprint of distribution that was so important, the global distribution. Now it's about getting behind those brands with marketing, with perseverance, with complete diligence to make those brands household names. And I think that is the final frontier in a way for SLG. And of course, that's a timeless frontier then, because establishing those and maintaining those then becomes the sort of, you know, the 10-year goal. But over the course of the next 5 years, that is absolutely the ambition. I think with that then, probably I'm very proud of the company and proud of the people and proud of what we do. And I want everyone to feel a sense of achievement together. And I think sort of being known globally, your brands being known anyway, is something to be very proud of, and I want everybody to be able to feel that.
Do you see yourself as a sort of super dry of cosmetics then, a bit like that? You know what I've got his name, is it? Yeah. Julian's. Do you know? You obviously know Julian very well as well.
Yeah, I've gotten to know him definitely, and yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'd rather be the SLG of the beauty world rather than Superdry of the beauty. In fact, isn't it interesting? We have Superdry as one of our key strategic partners in terms of licensed brands, and so that nestles beautifully in our portfolio of brands. I guess maybe. And they're a design-led company. We are too. They're huge. We're not huge like them. I guess that would be nice. And I do think Julian is an incredibly inspiring person. Incredibly inspiring, and well, to be talked about in the same bracket would be amazing, and that's not the case today, and it may never be, and that doesn't matter. No, we just carry on doing what we're doing. Yeah,
and he's a nice guy. I've had the pleasure of interviewing him a couple of times as well, and he's always got that time for you, which is really nice.
Well, he's a global guy, but he's very, very passionate about things local, isn't he? You know, and I love that about him as well. Yeah, very, very fond of him.
Yeah, no, nice guy. And anyway, we're moving on for yourself now, really. So we're coming to the sort of final furlong of the interview. What's the last book that you read, Miles?
The last book I read, which I only finished a couple of days ago, and I always forget the name of it, Robert Harris, about the popes. I forget the name of it, but it's the Robert Harris book, novel, a fictional novel about the election of a pope. And if I recommend anyone reads this, it's so topical about. I can't say why because it will be a spoiler, but yeah. And I'm so sorry I can't remember the actual name of it. But
do you always read fictional books, or do you know into autobiographies?
I pretty much alternate one after the other between fiction and non-fiction, fiction and non-fiction. I avoid too much overt business literature reading because it can cause me. I read at night time, bedtime, and it can cause me to think too much about business. I can't get to sleep because I'm like buzzing, wanting I'll go to the office midnight. You know, I've got an idea. So I tend to avoid. I never read kind of like hardcore business leadership books and that kind of whatnot. It's not my thing. But I do like reading about great entrepreneurs who've succeeded in business. occasionally. I enjoy those and take inspiration from those. But occasionally I need detachment, and that's where the fictional books I enjoy.
No, I totally get it. I constantly read newspapers. That's my big love, really, as you can imagine. And I'm just a very slow reader of a book. I'm reading 8 at the moment because I just get stuck. And I've been reading Bill Bryson Journey Around Australia for like 8 years. Yeah, but what's the last album or download that you've bought?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I don't buy albums, because I haven't bought a record, a CD, nothing for decades, perhaps a decade maybe. The last music I downloaded on Apple was Paul Weller's latest album. Well, the great thing is, of course, now you don't have to download the whole album, those 3 or 4 tracks that you don't really enjoy. So I selected half a dozen of his latest album, which is called Pop Something, because I'm a massive, he's the soundtrack of my life. So whenever he produces some music, I listen to that and download that.
All right, okay. And the final thing I have to ask you is what's your top 3 business tips, please, Miles?
Well, for me, the 3, for me, business is a love thing, and I'd say my first piece of advice is to business people is to love what you do, to love the idea, love your business. It's going to ask a lot of you, your business and your idea. So there's a lot to sacrifice. So you've got to love what you do. I think secondly, it's really important to love your customers. At the end of the day, without customers, you don't have a business, and you need to feel the love for them, whether they are, in our case, retail customers or indeed consumers further down the line. And we have a saying at SLG that we need to make our customers feel like rock stars. Actually, we say like fucking rock stars in that regard. And that's something that is definitely a mantra of SLG, this kind of passion for the customer. And then finally, and definitely most importantly of those, I think, is that you've got to love your staff. You've got to love your colleagues. You've got to love the people that are working for you, because at the end of the day, they are helping you as an entrepreneur fulfill your dream. It's not, it's not their company. And I think it's really important to show the love to the people that you work with, and that's often forgotten, I think.
Well, I love your business very much, Miles. Congratulations on all your success, and thanks ever so much for joining Punchline Talks today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.